So you all know this is the Mastering Midlife podcast. Generally, we're dealing with us old dogs who've lived a little and seen a little. And every once in a while, I have someone on the show who's a little greener, a little less gray, and a little more energetic than the rest of us. And I have them on for a reason. So Brandon T. Adams, who is an award-winning, Emmy-winning producer and host of a TV series called Success in Your City. He's a podcaster, he's a speaker, he's an inventor, he's an advisor, he's a media expert, he's a serial entrepreneur. He actually grew. What I love about him that's different about him than all the other Twitter bros and all the success coaches I see out there is that he actually built a business with his dad, built it even bigger with his expertise and his grit, invented new products, and really did the deal of becoming an entrepreneur. He's wrote a book that's coming out in September, but you can pre-order it, so we'll give you that information later, called The Road to Success, How to Succeed, How to Achieve Success in Life and Love and Business. And the exciting piece about this is Brandon's actually done this stuff. So I have Brandon on the show because he has something to share, even though in his age, I was living in my truck and homeless and drunk and drugs and all that stuff while he was building empires and becoming who he is. Brandon, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, man. By the way, I've lived in my truck, slept in my truck a lot too. So we have that in common.
Because you're an entrepreneur. You're a gritty entrepreneur.
Yeah, definitely.
So remember I told you when you came on, I was going to ask you a question that you weren't ready for.
Yep.
So I have a definition of midlife. And midlife isn't an age. Midlife is when you figure out what you were doing is no longer working and you want to do something different. That automatic, that thing you grew up that you were supposed to be doing, or that, whatever that compulsion was that was driving you, starts to change. You start to question it. You start to go, because you were in your family business and all that stuff, and you start to change what you want to do. And that scary piece of letting go what was to what could be. And it doesn't matter what age it is. And I'm thinking this happened to you at a young age.
It did.
So tell me about your midlife awakening.
How old were you? This is a really good question. I was in the middle of traveling the country. I was 28 years old. I think that's 28. Yeah, that's 2018. And I came to the realization that I had to sell a business that I bought from my father 3 years prior, and something that my whole life I was a part of since I was alive, 30 years around, that I said I would never sell. I came to the realization that it was actually holding me back from achieving my ultimate success, because something I was holding on that was good, making money, was really not allowing me to do something great. And so that having to have that conversation with my father, who had built the business since 1986, and I worked with him in it, I cried with him. And it was a very difficult situation. But I knew I had to do it because I was trying to make my father happy and proud, but I realized that I needed to go and do my own thing, and not just be the ice business anymore. I had to go and do what I really wanted, which was speaking and producing shows and doing things at a different kind of field. That was a really tough decision for me. It wasn't easy. Probably one of the hardest things. I had to have a conversation with myself. My wife helped me kind of realize, hey, really, this is good, but in reality, you probably shouldn't be in the business anymore.
So how well did you balance the respect and reverence for what your father built, what you built together with him, and what you needed to go do? How well did you do that?
I mean, I had mad respect for my father. I got to see when I was 8 years old with him in the ice truck. I got to see when he almost lost it all and he's begging the banker for more money. I got to see him work his butt off. And so that's ingrained as you. I think about as a child, that is such an important part of your life because it really builds you into who you are. So I was born a Spartan entrepreneur. I would see my dad do this, and he would peddle things. He would buy and sell stuff. And so that made me an entrepreneur. So I got to really see. So I had so much respect for my father. everything I do. I mean, to this day, I mean, my wife is a big component, but like, I want to make my dad proud. And he doesn't understand everything. I remember the first time I got a Emmy nomination for my first show, and he said, "What's an Emmy?" And so like, there's been a couple moments in my life that my dad was really proud of me. And I knew based on how he reacted to a certain situation, but it was always hard for him. He had to like see it, not me tell him about it, but he had to see it in his own way. And those are the moments kind of I live for, you know? But yeah, my dad did everything. He turned me in who I am, and really gave me the knowledge to take on what I do in the business world. I think that's why I'm so good at doing business relationships and closing very significant business deals, because of what I learned from my father working with the mom and pop stores growing up as a kid.
I love that. I love the phrase you just said, the Spartan entrepreneur, like that gritty, like I didn't know what that was. You know, I was a sales guy in the high tech industry after my whole bout with homelessness and, you know, all that stuff. Once I established myself, got married, had kids, and was a sales guy, when I became a coach, nobody told me that I was going to be an entrepreneur. Had no idea what the grit was that I needed to be an entrepreneur and grow a business. Like I'm going to be a coach. I'm going to talk to people. I'm going to help people. My business is going to grow. Nobody told me that. You actually grew up with that grit and that Spartan, which really helped you in that next chapter. Now, the question I have is, you know, you leave what's known, you leave what's safe, because you had an income, you had a leg, you had a future because you now own the company, and now you're going to go into something completely different. What's it like being, you know, like the established person, and now you're going into something completely different?
Well, I guess it wasn't completely, it was different. It's like I had a midlife crisis early on in my life, to be honest. I think it was when I was like 26, 7, 8. And it was because, so like, to back up a second, when I was in the ice business, I had bought in, and then I bought the business for my dad, but I was also working with the corporate company that we had purchased our product from. At that time, I was managing 8 locations, 50 employees, not huge, but I was 22 years old. And so like, I saw what it was like to manage, it was like a $10 million territory. So I saw what it's like to be like the king of the ice. And I fucking hated it, man. Like, I had no life. I was working 120-hour weeks, and I realized like, this is my potential of making money, and like, I have no life. And so that was like my aha moment. Like, I don't want to use my back the rest of my life. My dad always said, use your head, use your brain. And so that's when I started doing my own endeavors. I mentioned it didn't really work out. I mean, a cool story. I got some patents and trademarks, and it sold, but it didn't make me much. It cost me $100,000. And then I started doing these crowdfunding and video production. And so like, I was building another business while doing the ice business. And then the other business started being just as much revenue as the ice business. And then I'm like, what I did is what most entrepreneurs do is I was doing too many things.
Sure.
Like, the revenue between my business we're doing over 7 figures and between everything. And it was doing pretty good. But like, I was all over the place, and I wasn't focused in on one area. And so that hard thing, I always say, hey, you got to focus on one thing. Like, I had to eat my own medicine and realize I got to just do one thing. And so that's where it came to the realization. I don't know if that answered your question, but I had to get out. I had to go and do this other thing. And you
had to make a choice. It came to a head where you couldn't do both, and you had to make a choice, but you waited till the last possible minute rather than thinking ahead.
Yeah. But, you know, I look at, and for those listening, I really want to pound this home because this is really hard for me. When I did it, I think it was at a good time. I'm glad I did it then, and now I don't have to worry about it. Because ultimately my best friends bought the business, so I'm very happy for them. But I'll tell you, like, I had that conversation with myself for so long, and I even knew in the back of my head it was going to have to happen one time. I was going to have to get out of the business. And for those of you listening, like, you're in that situation, whether it's a family business and it's not your 100% like thing you want to do, or like you have other thoughts, other things, don't just like write it out because it's good, because you're going to regret it one day. I didn't want to have the regrets. I ate the hard decision I had to do. I had to have the conversation. I cried my way through it. I hated it in the moment. And then once I did it, I felt amazing. Once I got out of it, I felt so good.
Why?
Because I didn't have to I didn't have to worry anymore. Like I was at peace with the whole situation. I wasn't like, oh, like, should I sell it? Should I not sell it? Am I making my dad proud? Like I was at peace. I'm like, I'm out of the ice business. That was 30 years of my life. And no, I'm on to my next chapter. And I felt like I had so much freedom and opportunity. There was more doors that open. When one door closes, that one more open for me. And
so how do you talk to, so because you have that experience, how do you, because you know, in your day-to-day travels, you talk to so many people who are inspired. You know, your job is to go inspire people and get people to think differently, right? That's what we go out and do when we go on stages and do podcasts and stuff like that, is how can we get people to open their minds? Now you're talking to people who have these jobs, they have responsibilities, they have things that are tethering them to what was. And in my vernacular, it's not a 10, it's an 8, it's a 7, it may even be a 2, but they're really hyper responsible. They care about their families, they care about their responsibilities, but they have this yearning to go do something else.
Yeah.
How do you help them nurture that transition?
Yeah, that's a good question. And just so y'all like listening, like I've had the selling the business thing. I've worked for corporates, had the side gigs where I had to turn down the big like paycheck every month because I knew it would eat me alive. I had these different situations that they're tempting, and you have all those thoughts, but I put myself in a position to always work to grow. The second I'm comfortable, like I'm dying. And so I would go after these things because I had a couple things in my life where like life experience where I realized life is short. I know this is so like
how do you figure out how old are you now?
I'm 30.
Right. You have to think about it. So you're 30. How do you know that life is short?
Yeah. So two things happened to me. I haven't talked about this in a while, but in 2015, I was it 15? No, 14. Wow. 2014, I had been working 110 hours a week, 120. I was sleeping 4 hours a night. Back then I was prescribed Adderall, so I was never like sleeping. I was driving a truck and I had a bunch of employees and all this stuff that I had to attend to. I got so worked, like not sleeping, like it hit me. Like I had a mental breakdown. I had to pull over the side of the road. I had my earpiece in, like my secretary was on the phone with them screaming through pain. The ambulance came. And how messed up my mind was is they took me to the ambulance and I somehow convinced them, hey, I'm fine because I got out of my spell. And my coworker had came up behind me and I said, he will take me to the hospital. I got back in the truck and I said to him I said, I ain't going to the fucking hospital. Take me back so I can go to work. So I went to work until midnight that night. And then I sat in that office that I was at all by myself. And I thought, I really looked at my life. My dad once told me, you'll be the richest guy in the grave. And I said, what is this?
By the way, blue collar dads are so prescient.
Yeah.
It's only now my dad with an 8th grade education, all these bubbles of this wisdom that he threw up, really amazing.
Yeah, things like that, things he would say that I can't all mention it. But no, so like I realized that, wow, life's short. And like I didn't take it too much seriously because I just kept going. And then one time I woke up in the ditch driving, like going 60 because I was so tired from that. Like, and then I'm like, that was a wake up call. And then a month later, one of my good friends got killed in a car accident. So like all these things happen. And so that's what made me realize, I always say, go out there, create something great and become unforgettable because life is too short not to.
Do you see how lucky you are that you got those wake up calls?
They were exactly. So that's why I say life is too short. So I guess the person listening, if you're questioning, like you want to go do that thing, what if you died tomorrow? Like, what if you died tomorrow or today? Would you be happy with, like, if let's say whatever happens in the afterlife, like you look down at yourself and you think like, okay, did you achieve what you wanted to achieve? I can tell you if somebody walked in right now and put a bullet in my head, I go wherever I go, I can tell you that I'm happy with what I've done. I know I can go a lot farther, a lot more things to do, but I did the crazy things that people think are crazy, but I can say I did it. I have no regret on it. I'm at peace with that.
I love that. I'm going to roll you back though. when you had that episode in the car and they actually had to call an ambulance,
Yeah.
and when you ended up in the ditch, would people have known that that was going on with you?
No.
Right? Did you look pretty driving yourself into the ground? Did you look successful? Did you look like, did people like go, Brandon's got it all. He's got it all together. He's a leadership guy. He knows what he's
They knew
doing.
I had it figured out. I mean, you could see in my eyes that I was tired a lot, but like nobody really knew. I mean, I didn't want them to know something that would hold me back from my potential. I didn't want to tell them, hey, like, oh, I just got to the hospital. Like, I wanted to keep going.
So this is the point. This is the whole point of this podcast and everything that I do, is that what I believe is that we have made an unspoken agreement that the price to be in the 1%, the exhaustion, the breakdowns, the broken relationships, the health issues, the addictions are worth it. And we don't talk about the fact that those things are happening to all of us, as long as we can see that we drive this car, that we made this triumph, that we have this many followers, right? That we look this good on the video. And I've talked to so many leadership coaches who, when you finally get them to be honest, they're like, I'm working twice as hard than when I had my corporate job. I started out for the love of this, and I just created the same thing I ever had, and I'm miserable, right? So you revealing this helps other people understand that it doesn't matter how good everybody else looks. This game is really tough. And if you don't look at the whole thing, it's not going to be sustainable.
No.
So now my guess is especially in this book, the Road to Success book, my guess is you're preaching sustainability. Tell me about what you've learned from those things that you do differently now.
Yeah. So what I learned is, I mean, the whole concept, I look at the book and everything I look at, people like, oh, you're successful, success. Well, the question everybody should ask themselves is, what is success? Like, what you think success is and what I think success is and the girl next door is totally different. But what happens is society and social media and everything is, certain aspects is you got to get the degree, you got to get all to make the money, the house, the kids, your success. One is like, if you're in the entrepreneur space, if you're not making millions and you don't get the car, you're not a success. F that. Success is what you want it. So if you want to consider your own version of success of traveling the country, making, I'm just throwing a number out there, maybe making $60,000 a year online and doing what you want and having a family, like if that's your success, that's amazing. That's your success. But the problem is our society is like pushing you to think this is how it is. It's what you make it. So what I found out early on, because I was always trying to prove something to somebody, like I got to get this trophy, this award. I got to show you that I'm successful. I realized I don't need to prove shit to anybody, just myself. What do I want? And so that's what I learned. I think the first question everybody should ask is, what does success mean? And when you first start asking yourself that question and writing it down, that's when you start getting ahead. Because what will happen is they'll go down this path that they will wake up and realize, do I even want this? I just wasted 10 years of my life or whatever it is. I woke up early. Let's just put it that way.
You did.
Yeah.
And more and more people are. I am seeing people actually get this a little earlier. And it's really breathtaking that maybe we won't make the same mistakes and society will learn something. I also see an equal number of people really just going down the Grant Cardone, Gary Vaynerchuk insanity road,
Yeah.
Thinking that that's the direction. So now we define success.
Yeah.
But what do we need to have in our lives in order to make it the whole thing sustainable? I know what I want to go do, but what you said is, I know what I want to go do, and then you just went a bull in a china closet down that road.
Yeah.
What do we need to be able to sustain this? At 30, do you know that?
The people you surround yourself with. I mean, it really is. Like I'm lucky. Like you look at a relationship standpoint. So that is like the number one definer if it's going to make or break your life. Like literally, whether you marry the right person or the wrong person. For one, I'm in a great relationship. I love my wife, and it allows me to.
Dude, by the way, the reverence that I heard you speak about your wife in just a short snippet was so palpable. Was right there.
Thank you. And so like I can do what I want because I have a wife. Think about all the relationships out there where they can't do what they want. So that's one side of it. But then the mentors, like some of my business partners and people I work with, man, they are way far ahead of me, man. And I think that's what really kind of pushed me to think bigger. Like these guys have been there, done it again and again and again. And so not even like, yeah, getting mentorship from them, but just being in their presence when they speak, I learn and I listen. But also when you're with these people, opportunities come, they get big opportunities, right? So if you're with the person getting really big opportunities.
Just to give everybody perspective, Brandon is comparing himself to some of the titans in the industry. If you go to his website, you go to his website, you will see him standing shoulder to shoulder with people that you only hear legend of. So he's not comparing himself to mere mortals.
No, so like one of my mentors, he's taken 20 companies to over 100 million. And so like we just did a big business deal. And like now I don't want to take it for granted, but it's like I can easily close a 7-figure deal. It's because I'm around people, but I'm not just like asking for mentorship. I'm making their life, I'm bringing value to their life. So I think that's the number one thing where people make the mistake is they think, okay, like that person should help me. Like, here, can you help? Here's my advice. Like, help them. Like, I don't care who they are. They're worth 10 billion. Help them get what they want. Do research on them and see how you can help them. And then once you help them get what they want, they're gonna help you. So that's another thing, the relationships. And then mastering what you love. So like I enjoy, this is what I figured out. I love communication, speaking, specifically on stages, which isn't happening for a while. And then also creating video content. Now, why do I love it? I love it because it tells a story. It makes an impact, and it does things for the good. So I realize that's what I love. So why do I have success in that field? Because I consume myself with it. So like in video, I've personally put over $500,000 of my own money into video because I wanted to be really good at it.
To mastering your craft.
Yeah. Speaking, I went everywhere. I spoke. And so I worked whatever it is you want to do, master your craft, pick your one thing. So when I was in the ice business and speaking in that, I couldn't do ice and then be the best speaker, even if it was like 2 days out of the year that I had to focus on the ice business. Those 2 days, I could have been focusing on my speaking and video production. So master your craft. So relationships, who you're with, knowing what you want, and mastering your craft. That's really kind of the simple principle utilized.
Nice. God, the storm, to everybody's listening, the technical difficulties, there's a storm raging here in Virginia. So every once in a while we got Brandon to cut out a little bit. So what's next for you?
So our show, we're releasing, we have more episodes coming out on Amazon Prime. For me, we got our book coming out. My wife and I wrote together. That was another story. She probably almost wanted to kill me in that process because writing a book, as you know, is not an easy task, especially when you got your significant other.
I'm writing 3 right now.
Well, you know. So got the book coming out this fall, and I'm continuously working on mastering the stories I share through video and through communication, speaking. And so right now, like with COVID, I've come to the realization I'm not going to be speaking on many large stages this year, but I can continuously master my communication and video production with a phone.
Yeah, no, I've been learning a lot. I've been learning a lot from you over the past few months since I've been introduced to you. So again, for me at 58 tomorrow.
Happy birthday early.
Thank you. To be as interested in mastering something new and kind of a young man's game is really fun. getting the camera equipment, learning the skills to be on camera, all this stuff, dealing with my own inner demons to try something new and to compare myself to, guys who are hanging from cliffs and going, follow me in the leadership journey. And I'm like, that looks like it hurts, right? Like I'll stay in my chair and do that conversation.
Yeah.
But it really is again, it feels like I'm starting over again, and it keeps me young and sharp and in the game. And it's for me, talking to people who want to do a third act, right, to really jump in and do that.
I think we're always reinventing ourselves. Like I've reinvented myself multiple times. I mean, COVID has forced us to reinvent ourselves in a way, because it's like I was speaking every week in a different city. Well, I no longer can speak every week in a different city. So I have to like reinvent my approach.
Sure.
I think that always happens. I mean, till the day we die.
So last question. You die tomorrow.
Yeah.
What do you want people to remember you for? What is that lasting thing that you want people to feel when they talk about you?
Yeah, it's been a while since I've had that question asked. I would say I would want them to remember me as a guy that really wanted to help people and also made an impact on them, whether I met them for 2 minutes or they known me for years. I always, when I'm in presence of somebody, whether it's like this or it's in person event, I want to make a lasting impact where they're like, I remember that guy and he impacted me to go do this. I think the coolest things for me is like over the years when people reach out to me and I even forget, I feel bad, like I forget talking to them. And they'll say, you remember that time you said this to me? Because of that, I went and did this. That's really powerful for me. I enjoy that. So I want them to remember me. I'm the guy that pushed them to go do something they really wanted to do.
Dude, as a dad of 2 young men, I can tell you that your father is as proud of you as he could possibly be. So,
I
just
hope.
wanting to make an impact in the world and using your gifts and talents, that's all we can ever hope for our kids. So
Thank you.
I think he is probably a very special man. So,
He is.
Brandon, I really appreciate you being candid with us and talking about the real underneath the video, right? Like
Yeah.
that's really useful. I appreciate it. So the book comes out in September.
Yeah. So you can pre-order it everywhere, Barnes and Noble, online. But if you want to easily get access, you just go to successinyourcity.com. That's our site. Go pre-order it. And depending on COVID, I should be doing a book tour here in September. So September 22nd is a release date.
All right. So I'm going to put that in the show notes so people can just click on that and find everything from you, your show, your TV shows, your videos, the book, and be able to follow you. I really suggest that you do. This young man has a ton of value for you.
Yeah.
Brandon,
and also, I'm just going to say, if anybody wants to ever ask me questions, at Brandon T. Adams, yes, I will. You got any questions for me? You hear this? I'll answer it.
So I'm going to put that in the show notes because you just broke out. You broke up a little bit again, but Brandon is available to you. I know he's the kind of guy who answers his emails. So that's a pretty cool thing. Again, thank you for taking the time with us.
Thank you.
To everybody else, I just appreciate your time and attention more than you know. Remember your allostatic load. You're a fan of this show. We use that word all the time. It's high. People are stressed. Take care of yourself. Drink water. Get plenty of rest. Be kind to everybody else and yourself. I love you. Have a great rest of the day.